Now let's get into this news here of the feminizing of men through toxic chemicals. For decades, they've been contaminating the food and water supply with estrogen mimickers, microplastics that have been lowering testosterone rates for decades, leaving men sterile and women infertile due to hormone imbalances as well. Sperm counts in men expected to hit 0 by the year 2045. The pussifying of men has been going on for decades, but lately, this has increased substantially. It's not a coincidence there are more men transitioning into women now. All these celebrities just wake up one day and decide to be a woman. Well, ain't that some shit? Or overall, just becoming more and more feminine, which in turn leads them to vote more liberal, as seen in many studies linking testosterone levels to voting preferences. At this rate, they'll never have to steal an election again. The more pussified men are, the more they'll vote for a bigger government, for daddy to come save them. Let's not forget the vast majority of women around the world vote left more often. One of the reasons due to women being generally more emotional and falling for the emotional side of arguments. Not all women, but most do. A lot of cool women listen to this podcast. I know they're the awake ones. They're the cool ones. The idea that giving up your rights and having a bigger government can solve all of society's ills like homelessness, gun crime, racism, and so on. It's total nonsense, and only emotional thinkers fall for it, like teenagers as well. This is why liberals want to lower the voting age, because nobody's falling for their BS propaganda, their emotional garbage, unless they're emotional thinkers and not really logical. That's why they're going after teens and even children. Studies done in Canada showing that if only women voted, liberals would not only win 100% of the time, but would also take up 226 seats in parliament. If only men voted, it says here liberals and conservatives would be at a tie almost every time. Now, what's fascinating here is that testosterone levels sway political leanings. In some studies, they took men with low testosterone and asked them how they felt about certain political issues, and all of them were quite left-leaning. Then they gave them testosterone treatment to see if their opinions would change at all, and all of them started to have more conservative ideas after the treatment. How wild is that? Fun fact, you guys hear about all the craziness going on with Bud Light at the moment, promoting the homosexual agenda, clearly a huge disconnect with the consumers of the beer. Take a good look at this woman right here, people. This is Alyssa Gordon Heinerscheid. Hopefully I'm saying her last name right. The new vice president of marketing at Bud Light. The first woman to ever lead the brand. Anyone surprised? Apparently after the Dylan Mulvaney Bud Light promotion, now Bud Light's parent company has lost $6 billion in market cap in just 6 days after Dylan Mulvaney partnership. But no, guys, this is a good thing according to Clown TV News, aka CTV News. Headline here, Bud Light inclusive ad campaigns are good for business. Experts say. That's right, peeps. The omnipresent, all-knowing experts strike again. And it looks like because they're losing so much money, they're now paying podcast hosts like Joe Rogan to drink the beer on cam and defend their actions. Would you look at that? They went to what many view as a manly guy, that podcast host, to redeem themselves. Well, he's somewhat manlier than Dylan Mulvaney. Slightly. It's just insane, right? Quite weird, right? You put a woman in charge of the marketing over there at Bud Light and they lose $6 billion because clearly there's a disconnect here with the consumers of the product. But the saying, go woke, go broke? I don't think that's really the case. I think there's something else going on behind the scenes that we don't see. Just because you Google someone's net worth or you see that they lost a certain amount of money on public profiles, I don't think they're really losing money because it wouldn't make sense for these companies. They're being paid big bucks behind the scenes to promote this woke garbage New World Order agenda. They're being paid more than you can imagine. This is why Hollywood is losing money in all of their woke bullshit videos, and they don't even care. They keep going along with it. It's like Bud Light putting homosexual propaganda on the drinks and putting them out there and losing money, and they still don't seem to care. And now Tampax, I don't know if they've partnered with Dylan Mulvaney, but I just seen a video with him promoting tampons now. What in the world is going on here, people? They don't care about money. Understand that. These big companies are being paid big bucks to push this woke garbage. Now, back to the testosterone levels and political leanings. Let me read you a study done on psychological science here. The researchers collected data on bicep size, socioeconomic status, and support for economic redistribution from hundreds of people in the United States, Argentina, and Denmark. What's economic redistribution? Well, communism. That's right. It says here, there is no government or private property or currency, and the wealth is divided among citizens equally or according to individual need. Many of communism's tenets derive from the works of German revolutionary Karl Marx. The reason why I needed to get that out there, because communism sounds good on paper, but it never works out in the real world. And we have many examples of this. They even stopped using the word communism because of the negative connotations, so they sneakily say redistribution of wealth. And that triggers an emotional response in the emotional thinkers, especially teenagers. Redistribution of wealth. That sounds pretty good, right? Elon Musk has like $100 billion. Give me some money. I don't want to work, plus the laziness on top of that. This sounds like a good thing to them. Redistribution of wealth. And it only sounds good to the uneducated on the topic. Emotional thinkers will fall for this more often. For example, teenagers. Now, back to the study here. In line with their hypothesis, the data revealed that wealthy men with high upper body strength were less likely to support redistribution. Interesting point here, and it carries on right here. Despite the fact that the United States, Denmark, and Argentina have very different welfare systems, we still see that at the psychological level, individuals reason about the welfare redistribution in the same way, says Peterson. In all three countries, physically strong males consistently pursue the self-interested position on redistribution. Men with low upper body strength, on the other hand, were less likely to support their own interests, their self-interests. Wealthy men of this group showed less resistance to redistribution, while poor men showed less support. Our results demonstrate that physically weak males are more reluctant than physically strong males to assert their self-interests. So in other words, they're alphas, they're against commie scum, and are capitalists by nature. Just as if disputes over national policies were a matter of direct physical confrontation among small numbers of individuals, rather than abstract electoral dynamics among millions. I love how Libby's twist words and use the mental gymnastics here. Conservative values means you're full of yourself. If you have conservative values, if you're not with the communism, if you're not with redistribution of wealth, then you're all about your self-interest. You're evil. You know, why aren't you thinking about the poor? The only way to solve this homelessness issue is if we have redistribution of wealth. That's something important to know. This is why Soros is funding all these Marxist movements and funding things that cause homelessness. They want more of that. They want more of that so they can use it as a political talking point. They can say, look at all these homeless people. It's getting worse and worse because of capitalism. We must accept redistribution of wealth. And how do you think that's going to happen? At the same time, these international CBDCs are taking place, UBI, Universal Basic Income. That's how they'll redistribute the wealth, people. They need society to go down into a Mad Max state just so they can use it and say, look how bad it's getting. Do you still support capitalism? Do you still have self-interest, you evil conservative capitalist? Important quote right here. Physically weak males are more reluctant than physically strong males to assert their self-interest. In other words, are feminine commies that wants the government to play the role of daddy. Endless studies here showing us that testosterone levels can dictate where someone leans politically. It's not a surprise that the New World Order also consists of a war on testosterone. This is why we have beta clowns like James Cameron, the director of Avatar, saying testosterone is a toxin. On an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, he described himself as previously a wild testosterone poisoned young man and labeled testosterone as a toxin that you have to slowly work out of your system. That's right, peeps. James Cameron sounds like he's transitioning. into a woman. Don't be surprised if Jamie Cameron wins Woman of the Year award soon. These demons are trying everything in their power to turn men into trannies. Exposure to BPAs early on can make men sexual misfits, in quotes. Studies showing that males exposed to the controversial chemical might look normal but are demasculinized in ways that make them less attractive to females. Scientists say their findings suggest that BPA might demasculinize human males as well, possibly resulting in decreased reproductive fitness. Or as a plain-spoken non-scientist might say, BPA could transform seemingly normal guys into girly men who find it hard to attract a mate. The BPA-exposed deer mice in our study look normal. There is nothing obviously wrong with them. Study author Dr. Cheryl Rosenfield, Associate Professor of Biomedical Sciences at the University of Missouri College of Veterinary Medicine, said in a written statement. Yet, they are clearly different. Females do not want to mate with BPA-exposed male deer mice, and BPA-exposed males performed worse on spatial navigation tasks that assess their ability to find female partners in the wild. Now, this study that was done went like this. Female deer mice were fed BPA-containing diets before breeding, and until their pups were weaned about 25 days after birth, the male pups were put on a BPA-free diet and then given a maze challenge upon reaching sexual maturity. What happened? Turned out the mice born to moms fed BPA were lousy at finding their way in the maze. What's more, they were less desirable to female mice, as shown by the amount of time the gals spent sniffing them nose to nose. So draw the conclusions yourself, peeps. Masculinity has been targeted by the DICs. The New World Order couldn't possibly go on with their agenda with strong testosterone pumped males, so this is why they've been covertly poisoning the masses with microplastics, harmful forever chemicals, so men become feminized and willingly give up their guns to daddy government. These chemicals, called endocrine disruptors, can mimic or interfere with the body's hormones, including thyroid hormones, estrogen, testosterone, etc. Endocrine disruptors can impair the development and proper functioning of the reproductive, nervous, and immune systems in humans and animals, and can affect future generations. That's right, pregnant women exposed to BPAs can have their children affected as well. It says here, fetal exposure can lead to adult disease. Our research with Kathy Valencourt, who studies pregnancy and toxicology at INRS, has shown that endocrine disruptors can interfere with the hormone produced by the placenta, known for its robust defense barriers, which can lead to health complications later in life. Chronic diseases such as diabetes and obesity have been associated with exposure to endocrine disruptors, crossing the placental barrier during fetal development. We also have shown that early exposure to endocrine modulators can affect the development of fetal mammary glands, and increase the risk of developing breast cancer in adulthood. Studies done here showing bisphenol A an emerging threat to female fertility. Endless studies on how these microplastics interrupt hormone balance in women, causing not only infertility issues, but also neurological issues in women as well. Here's a quick video going over microplastics affecting the embryonic development.
Plastic pollution can now be found in the mother's womb, but how could this plastic affect the embryo? Scientists discovered that tiny plastics, called nanoplastics, can disrupt embryonic development by interfering with stem cells from which tissues and organs originate. In their study, the researchers injected 25 nanometer nanoparticles into chick embryos and observed their movement using microscopes. They found that the nanoparticles prevented neural neural crest stem cells from moving to their proper locations, which disrupted the early stages of development. These cells are critical for the formation of various organs and tissues, such as the heart, arteries, facial features, and nervous system. 1 in 4 chick embryos had abnormally small eyes, facial malformations, thinning heart muscles, slow heart rates, and neural tube abnormalities, which can disrupt the development of the early brain and spinal cord. While the quantities of nanoplastics in the study were higher than typical human exposure levels, the researchers warned that low-level exposure to nanoplastics is still problematic because of the way they bind to neural crest cells. In 2020, researchers detected microplastics in human placentas for the first time. The microplastics were found in all placental portions, including maternal, fetal, and chorioamniotic membranes. Microplastics carry with them substances that act as endocrine disruptors. These could cause long-term effects on human health. Researchers believe that the microplastics could have reached the placenta through the parent's respiratory system or gastrointestinal tract. Nearly 360 million metric tons of plastic were produced in 2018, a number expected to double by 2025. Studies like this one are only just beginning to sketch out the potential health impacts of plastic dust on animals as manufacturers churn out more of the stuff.
Crazy. And keep in mind that plastics only started being used in mass in the 1950s. And within 70 years, we see testosterone rates decline about 70% in young men, and infertility issues exploding as well. This is by design, people. If you know exactly what microplastics are capable of, you can't think this is just by accident or incompetence. They know exactly what's happening. They're seeing infertility rates drop, and they're not doing anything about this. Matter of fact, they're putting out graphene now, which they say can help these forever chemicals like microplastics enter your cells easier. These microplastics and other forever chemicals are linked to neurological issues as well in men and women. It's not hard to see something is making people lose it mentally. They're not all there. Mental illness is exploding everywhere, people. You can't tell me there isn't a connection here. Reports on Statista showing 7.2% of Americans now identify as LGBT. 7.2%. So around 23 million people. You can't tell me there isn't an agenda going on here. Not only with nonstop LGBTQ propaganda, but the toxic chemicals in the food, water, and air, the same chemicals turning the frogs gay, are turning men into tranny demons. You've probably seen this video here. It was a group of trans people at a Transgender Day rally here in BC, and counter protesters showed up and were attacked on camera, and police didn't do a damn thing. The video shows a man just standing there, and he had this Baphomet tranny screaming "fuck you" in his face repeatedly, loud and aggressive, and he didn't say anything back. And the tranny demon grabbed him by the neck. Mind you, this guy didn't look like a small dude either. He looked to be like over 6 feet tall. He looked like he wasn't a small dude. And he was grabbed by the neck by the Baphomet tranny and ragdolled, tossed around like a bag of feathers. Mental illness in full display, peeps. Shout out to the counter protesters, though, for showing up to the tranny rally, because these freaks are pumped with so much hormones that it makes them psychotic, okay? There's a reason why you won't see me showing up to any one of those events as a counter protester. Can you imagine me getting my ass kicked by a bunch of trannies? I would never recover from that, Just a video of EyesIsWatchin getting his ass beat by a bunch of trannies. At the end of the day, they're dudes, but it would just be hilarious that they're in wigs and wearing makeup and beating me up. There's no recovering from that, people. The hilarious imagery of just getting beat up by a bunch of dudes in wigs. And you got to understand, these are men. They have the bodies of men, same bone density and upper body strength, and the aggressive nature that men generally have because of higher testosterone levels, right? Even though these so-called men have lower testosterone levels, it's still higher than women's. On top of that, they're being pumped with other chemicals and hormones, the same hormones that women have. So, it gives them that psychotic nature of a woman on top of that, makes them a little nuts. So they got the testosterone and they're being pumped with so much estrogen. And they're like double crazy. They're like the worst of both worlds. I mean, not saying testosterone is bad, but if you add a bunch of other hormones and medications on top of that, like estrogen and You got the antidepressants. Who knows what else they take? It literally makes you a psychotic Baphomet tranny from hell, okay? That's their main priority here. That's the New World Order agenda. That's why I'll never show up to one of these Baphomet rallies, because you might get disemboweled by these monsters and police won't even do a damn thing. It's like retard strength, but it's like tranny strength. It's like, like Mortal Kombat fatality. They might reach into your heart and rip your heart out because they're pumped with so many chemicals and hormone disruptors or whatever the hell it is that they're psychotic. That one video scared the shit out of me, boy. She ragdolled that dude, man. Like the one cop that witnessed that whole assault too and said it was a fair fight. Nothing to see here. Biggest grin on her face. You can tell what side she's on politically, people. But trans people, because of the hormones they're being injected with, on top of what is clearly mental illness, is a recipe for disaster. On nationaljustice.com, in 2019, it breaks down the statistics. Transgenders are 58% more likely to commit murder than be murdered. On a section here, it says violent transgender crime in the US 2018 to 2019 has put a number of transgender murderers in the spotlight. In court, they often state that they are justified in killing others due to bigotry. In Colorado, a transsexual and its partner shot 9 students at their school, later claiming that they deserved it for their transphobia. No evidence has been produced so far to substantiate this claim. Not that bullying would justify taking a gun and murdering a classmate any more than it did with the Columbine shooters, it says here. In Maine, another transgender argued that it had to murder both of its parents and the family dog because they did not accept its new gender. Once again, this was unfounded. In Maryland, a transgender mass shooter killed 3 and injured another 3 people before turning the gun on itself. In California, Berkeley, a trans activist was recently slapped on the wrist with a rarely granted insanity plea for stabbing 2 women, 1 to death. In Texas, a transgender beat a baby girl to death and is facing the death penalty. It's endless, folks. Painting a full picture regarding the extent of transgender violence has been made difficult due to the fact that the media often omits the gender identity of culprits unless it's absolutely necessary or can be used to bolster the prefabricated pro-LGBT party line. For example, Mia Williams in Florida, a balding man with a beard who was being referred to according to his female gender identity, in quotes, is being charged with homicide after dousing a woman with gasoline and lighting her on fire, as well as arson for burning down a local church. This is insane, people. A few more stories here, actually, I found. A violent pedophile who raped 3-month-old baby as a teenager is quietly moved to female prison with mother and baby unit after having transgender surgery in Canada. Adam Lebowkin was sentenced in 1997 for raping a baby at 15 years old. Lebowkin was moved to a women's prison by 2017 after transitioning to a woman. Another episode of Clown World here, peeps. Another story in Australia with a video to go along with it. Transgender woman who hacked 7-Eleven customers with an axe will spend an extra 5 years in jail after lawyers appealed her lenient sentence. Now, this is important to note here. Back to the article on national justice. Transgenders least likely to be murdered. Simple math shows that transgenders are less likely to be murdered than normal people. According to FBI crime statistics, Americans are victims of homicide at a rate of about 5 per 100,000. For men, the number is 6.6 per 100,000, and for women, 1.8, according to gay activist groups. 24 transgenders have been killed in 2019 out of a population of 1.4 million, making their homicide rate 1.7 out of 100,000, less likely to be killed than the average woman. The low murder rate transgenders enjoy is thanks to the plethora of specialized public and private employment, health, housing, and other services they have in big cities, which average people have no access to. The media, law enforcement, and political class prioritization of their well-being above everyone else also contributes to this inequality. The fact that a man is 6 times less likely to be killed if he takes female hormones and wears women's clothing is proof positive that it's normal people who are in dire need of advocacy. Great point here. So men are victims of homicide 74% of the time unless they wear a wig and put makeup on and identify as a woman. Interesting, right? But of course, the propagandists on the fake news media twist this narrative to drive the trans people crazy. Believe they're being targeted and oppressed, and this makes them go crazy. They feel like they're being targeted, going out there and hacking people with machetes and shooting up schools. In their heads, they're fighting back against this evil, oppressive system. Notice how these small groups in America are being programmed to believe they're victims. The mainstream news propaganda love doing this. They cherry pick stories, carefully selecting the news stories, and start spamming people's news feed, especially transgenders or any so-called oppressed minority group. They'll spam their news feed with these stories, which drives them crazy. They start believing they're being targeted. There's an oppressive system out there targeting them because of the emotional thinking most people have. Because if you're a logical thinker, you will look at the numbers. And the numbers will tell you all you need to know. Men lie, women lie, the numbers don't. And by doing this, by convincing these minority groups they're oppressed, they're being used to push a Marxist agenda without them even being aware of it. Same thing with BLM. In order to overthrow the current government and install a new system, they need minority groups to believe they're being targeted and oppressed by a systemically oppressive system. They want to use these leftist minions to eventually overthrow the system one day and get rid of the American Constitution. What these groups don't realize is the demons in charge already have an alternative system ready to go, equipped with CBDCs, digital IDs, and social credit scores. Even the WEF admit this is the only way to tackle racism, sexism, transphobia, and fix climate change. Keep this in mind when you see these angry leftist groups on the streets protesting against the evil white supremacist system. The divisive term POC was created as well. What does that mean? People of color, which means all races versus white people. That's the only thing that term was created for. In their heads, they're systemically oppressed forever. No joke, critical race theory states the color of your skin determines whether you are the oppressor or the oppressed. And white people have an original sin of just being white. It's always their fault. They're forever the oppressor. And they're teaching blacks the color of their skin makes them oppressed forever as well. Even if they become a billionaire, it has nothing to do with class. I'm sure you guys seen Colin Kaepernick in that one video comparing the black football athletes to actual slaves. He's like, we're being treated like slaves out here, getting paid millions of dollars to throw a football around. Actual slaves, people. In their heads, you got to understand, a lot of them truly believe this, because of nonstop propaganda, decades of brainwashing by leftist propaganda. This is where we're at now. This is cultural Marxism at display here, folks. Have a common enemy everyone must team up against, and in this case, it's straight white men. And every other race is oppressed in some way until we overthrow this evil system and get rid of the Constitution and overthrow the government. Imagine January 6th times a million. But this time it would actually get full support of all the Democrats. And none of these protesters would be charged. This is why they're trying to link up all of these movements together. Don't you find it weird how the trans movement, feminist movement, and Black Lives Matter, Antifa are all tied together and they have their own flag? They want all of these so-called oppressed groups to team up into one big socialist group and have a socialist revolution like Karl Marx envisioned. We're seeing that flag everywhere, people. It has all the colors on it. They're adding black and brown to it because they want all of these groups, these minority groups, to team up and believe they're oppressed, and they're trying to join them into one black, brown, tranny, LGBTQ1 group just to start using them as minions. We're seeing this play out right now, folks. It's not a surprise. Soros is funding many of these movements. You know, the same man responsible for color revolutions around the world, like the one in Ukraine. Now he's funding a different color revolution. Very colorful indeed. Look at this flag right here. The rainbow flag revolution to overthrow the government to bring in a more pro-New World Order government. Remember in the documentary Ukraine on Fire, they explain exactly how they pull a revolution off in a country. Here's the clip. The techniques launched at that time were planned well in advance. Recipe for a revolution: money, media,
As
techniques.
veiled and masked as the color revolutions can be, an attentive viewer can see subtle patterns and similarities revealing their true nature. To make crowds act as one obedient group, they have to be united at the unconscious level. The masterminds of color revolutions know this well and have perfected the art. Symbolism is one of the most powerful tools to achieve this end. Revolutionary political organizations with surprisingly similar names and even more similar logos have appeared time and again, almost as omens marking the countries that would be hit by the colored plague next. They are often described as being aware and active, when they're actually trained and radical. They are the ones who take the first shot, literal and metaphorical, to transform the peaceful protests into full-blown coups d'etats. Their fingerprints can be found everywhere on the map of the color revolutions. Using all the experience of past generations, simple but effective tools like catchy sing-alongs and chanting are employed. Well known for exciting the crowd and creating a group identity, they depersonalize individuals and make them easier to manipulate.
Конечно, без денег здесь не могло быть.
Of course, it couldn't be done without money.
Incidentally, one such organization, Hromadske TV, received generous donations from the Dutch and U.S. embassies, as well as from the Renaissance Foundation, an NGO founded by George Soros.
Of course, people.
I set up a foundation in Ukraine before Ukraine became independent of Russia. And the foundation has been functioning ever since. And it played an important part in events now.
Well, that tells you a lot, doesn't it? And now he's funding BLM. He's funding the trans movement. He's funding Antifa. Do people not see what's going on here? It's the same exact thing they've done in many of these countries to overthrow the governments, to bring in a more pro-Western government, or in other words, pro-New World Order government. They're trying to do that here. And they're going to ramp up these false flags. They're going to make these minority groups believe they're being targeted and killed off, so all of them can join into one big socialist revolutionary group in order to overthrow the government, and they'll get full support by all of the Democrats, because the only thing standing in their way of totalitarianism on PCP, bringing in a New World Order system, is the American Constitution. They're trying to get rid of that in every way they can. In Ontario, Canada, people, NDP MPP Kristen Wong-Tam announced on Tuesday morning that she was introducing a private members bill that will allow the province's attorney general to temporarily designate addresses such as where a drag show or LGBTQ plus event is taking place as community safety zones. Wong-Tam said the move is in response to a rise in hate facing the LGBTQ plus community. No statistics or data backing up that claim. It's actually the opposite. Transgenders are more likely to commit violent crime than be victims of violent crime, but of course they don't care about statistics at all, including drag artists across both Ontario and the nation, it says, calling it alarming that they're being attacked like this. Under the new bill, anti-LGBTQ2S harassment bill, intimidation and hate speech within 100 meters would be subject to a $25,000 fine. The bill would also create in Ontario 2SLGBTQIA+. Oh my God, what a mouthful. Safety Advisory Committee. So give recommendations to the provincial government on how to provide better safety. It says right here. What makes this clown world central is how she started the speech right here. This is like, you couldn't make this up on South Park.
The topic that brings us here is deadly serious.
It's deadly serious with the people behind her dressed in Halloween costumes. I don't know what this is. So we got poor little girl here. I don't know who her parents are, but they should be ashamed of themselves. You know, having her a part of this. This is just sad. And you got the mental illness flag right here. Protect 2SLGBTQI plus communities. And what do we see here? We got the Addams Family share standing right behind this person right here. This person looks like a woman dressed as a man, dressed as a drag queen, dressed as a Hells Angels biker gang. I don't know what is going on here. Plus, they got Santa Claus right here in the back. I guess that's a 2SL. The S stands for Santa. We got Santa Claus right here, and then we got two drag queens. And then we got the mental illness N95 masks right here. So this is like mental illness all across the board, people. There's just something off right here. They want you to take this as a very serious issue. First thing she says, this is a deadly serious issue. Don't you got like, while you guys wear costumes and it's not even Halloween? What the hell is going on here? Check out what she says here.
The rise of hate and violence facing the 2S LGBTQI+ communities, including the drag artists, happening across Ontario and right in the nation has been alarming.
What is he talking about? What are you talking about?
Dramatic spike in violence and discrimination targeting the 2S LGBT community. A rise of over 60% between 2019 and 2021, all recorded.
They want you to take them serious, peeps. Even if they're wearing Wicked Witch costumes and it's not even Halloween. Now, what's interesting here is Wong Tam added 2SL. I haven't heard that one. To the LGBTQXYZ movement. 2SL in 2SLGBTQI+ stands for Two-Spirit, which it says here is an important term within some indigenous cultures and for some indigenous people, meaning a person with both a feminine and masculine spirit living in the same body. Notice what they're doing here, people. They added a few letters to include the indigenous community as well. They just recently added the black and brown colors to the flag recently too. This is a clear agenda of combining all these so-called oppressed groups into one entity so they can be ordered to overthrow the current system with Antifa-like riots. And what's pure evil here is they're recruiting children into this sick, twisted, woke derangement squad with CRT in schools and now drag shows. If you can't see there's a clear, evident agenda here, you are completely blind. Pretending like they're oppressed too. Like this meme says it all right here. This is a good one. Everything in the major cities is painted in rainbow colors to stand in solidarity with them, but they'll stick their heads into churches just to scream how they're oppressed. Stop oppressing me. Someone redid this meme here and it's gold. He made it based with the guy right here sitting down saying no, back with a smirk on his face. Based. Love it. But this is absolutely the case. I live close by Davie Street right here and I was driving by it the other day. You have no idea how many rainbow flags there are painted everywhere on the side of walls. You see that mental illness flag, let's just call it that. And peep the dislikes here on the video. I just downloaded the Firefox extension to show me the dislikes on videos, and this is wild. 5.100 dislikes and only 192 likes. People are onto them. What are they going to do here? Now, remember I was going over last podcast how they're putting graphene and everything. If you look into like how dangerous these microplastics are and what happens when they're combined with nano graphene particles, you'll find this is a deadly combo, right? This has to be planned. Like they knew exactly what the combination of these molecules would do because the damaging effects of this deadly combination is similar to the effects endless health issues, cardiovascular disease, hormone disruption, neurological disease. The list is endless. Says here, sharp edges of geo that can penetrate cell membranes might facilitate the penetration of microplastics and other unknown substances into organisms. So every time you see those chemtrails, just know there's a possibility that could be a combination of graphene and microplastics. I mean, that would be their preferred poison to spray onto the people. A YouTuber by the name of Mr. Beast with over 144 million subscribers has been in the headlines recently. For those that don't know, this is the biggest YouTuber in the world, the biggest audience of children on YouTube. Keep that in mind. His co-star, Chris Tyson, who made frequent appearances on the channel, just announced he's transitioning into a woman now. Mr. Beast's right-hand man, or should I say right-hand tran, is on a transmission. What in the hell is going on here? Chris Tyson had a wife and kids and woke up one day and decided to become a woman. Now, I'm not sure if it was the COVID vax, the microplastics that gave him brain damage, or is this just another satanic humiliation ritual? I don't know, but this is beyond unusual, peeps, because he used to post some pretty based stuff on Twitter. He was clowning on the craziness of the transgendered community. He used to post about this stuff regularly. He posted a meme in reply to someone years back, a crazy leftist parent screaming at his kid, "Why haven't you cut your penis off yet?" And the kid replying with, "I don't want to be a girl, mom." And this wasn't the only base thing Chris has posted in the past. Many memes just like this one. Make no mistake, folks, those in charge are Luciferians. If you don't see the clear agenda here, I don't know what to tell you. These Satanists love inverting God's creation. Chris and Mr. Beast used to put out videos like this one.
They have 63 genders up there, but they can't have my gender.
That's Mr.
Bro,
Beast.
what are you doing? Bro? Did you just assume my gender?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to misgender you.
You're such a helophobe. Get out!
I sexually identify as an attack helicopter. Ever since I was a boy, I dreamed of soaring over the oil fields, dropping hot, sticky loads on disgusting foreigners. People say to me that a person being a helicopter is impossible. I'm having a plastic surgeon install rotary blades, 30mm cannons, and AMG 114 Hellfire missiles on my body. From now on, I want you guys to call me Apache and respect my right to kill from above and kill needlessly. If you can't accept me, you're a helophobe and need to check your vehicle privilege.
How insane is this? So these are the videos they made. Hilarious comment here from JD. You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become a woman. That's right, folks. They shot him with the same direct energy weapon that they shot the Matrix director brothers with. I know that sounds crazy, but I was joking with that with my cousin the other day. Like, do they have some kind of trans DEW, a direct energy weapon where they just shoot you with it and you wake up and want to be a woman? I don't know. I was joking about this, but I did find some reports that they do have this tech. I mean, ain't this some shit? CNN Special Report 1985, electromagnetic frequency weapons for mind control. It says here, in 1985, CNN Special Reports, hosted by Chuck DiCaro, presents the early use of radio frequency devices in the military and testing its use for remote human behavior control. The scientists interviewed, which include Dr. Robert Becker and Dr. Ross Adey, show how electromagnetic fields and radio frequencies were tested as weapons of war against both machines and humans, as well as counter-terrorism efforts during the Cold War. At the same time, Russia was at the forefront of this technology with a device since the 1960s called the LIDA machine on psychiatric patients to alter moods and behaviors by emitting pulsed EMF heat, sound, and flashing lights as a form of mind control. Certain kinds of weak electromagnetic signals work exactly like drugs, stated a government scientist to CNN. Similar to work by Dr. Jose Delgado, achieved behavioral mind control via radio frequencies aimed at the brains of animals and humans. I'm sure you guys seen that one video. I showed that clip many times where he had this device installed into a bull, and every time he would press the button wirelessly, he can control the bull's behavior. This was in the 1960s, people. They had this technology for a while. Delving further into the segment reveals the testing of EMF and RF for inducing hallucinations, manipulating judgment, and altering brain function and intellect. CNN's special report 1985 electromagnetic frequency weapons. CNN special report went over this in 1985, people. Weapons of war. Is there an RF gap? So this is a video that came out in 1985, people.
Imagine the implications of a weapon with no visible Imagine the implications of a weapon with no visible trace. A weapon that could knock out tanks, ships, and planes as fast as the speed of light. The same technology with modifications could disorient and even tranquilize military personnel, rendering them virtually helpless in the battle zone.
Crazy.
These are the new weapons of war we will examine in this series.
Okay, people. So this is really interesting that they had technology like this they've been working on since the 1980s. I was joking about it, with my cousin. I'm like, do they have some kind of trans DEW? Like, do they shoot you with a direct energy weapon and it can change your brain chemistry and you'll automatically want to be a woman? Because it really seems like that with all these men waking up one day and wanting to be women, and celebrities too. Like, there's something behind it, people. Either they're being paid satanic humiliation rituals or trans DEW, trans do. Okay, they get shot with the trans do. I don't know. It all seems planned to me. Feminize the men, turn them into trannies, and then start a world war. I mean, I wonder who wins this one. Now, we're hearing reports of British soldiers on the ground in Ukraine, leaked documents showing they've been engaging in direct combat with Russian troops. Donald Trump tweets World War III in all capitals. I mean, are we already there, people? But knowing how psychotic these transitioning treatments are, I think Putin might have a hard time dealing with the tranny Baphomet demons there in Russia. I mean, imagine one of them over there hacking Russian soldiers with machetes. Stop oppressing me. Yeah, they're not ready. Matter of fact, we're going to send you a whole platoon of mentally deranged tranny Baphomets you're going to have to deal with over there. Good luck. But yeah, people, that's where I'm going to leave it. This is getting long, and I'm going to leave it right there. I hope everyone's doing well out there. If you like what I do here, if you want to support this channel, it is greatly appreciated if you hit those links in the description and send a one-time donation. It's because of all the people that support this channel that it keeps going every weekend. A lot goes into it, so thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the people out there that sent a one-time donation, that are subscribed to Patreon or Subscribestar. You guys are the reason this happens every weekend. A lot goes into it, and by helping me out financially, it lets me know that you appreciate the effort that goes into this. And thank you for all the people that purchased the Eyes Wide Open coffee. If you want great organic coffee, one that I picked out of a bunch of different batches, this was my favorite, you will be helping support this channel. Not only that, but you will be helping a small business over there in Alaska. So please consider purchasing the Eyes Wide Open coffee. It goes great with an Eyes is Watching podcast. Great combination right there. So make sure you purchase the coffee. And if you want to support this channel, the links are in the description. If not, that's cool too. Just hit the like, hit the subscribe, leave a comment, tell me how you feel about it. Share this with your friends and family. Get the word out. Get this podcast out there. Thank you to my people out there, and thank you so much for your support. Until next week, folks, this is Steve Eyes. You're on the Eyes is Watching channel, signing off.